Hello and welcome to the Microphotonics Imaging Laboratory here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We're happy to have you with us today. Each month we're going to be going through some new tips and tricks videos to help you get the most out of your SkyScan micro CT instrument. Let's go ahead and jump into this month's tip.
Hello and welcome to this month's edition of the Microphotonics Tip of the Month series. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion about filtering of datasets within CTAn. Most specifically, we're going to be talking about the mean, or otherwise known as the uniform filter present within CTAn. So we can see we still have the same noisy, fast scan of some SAN data. And we see the noise present both as the white specks on the outside of the image, as well as some of the heterogeneity in the composition of the granules themselves, as we would expect them to be a little bit more homogeneous than that. So of course, in terms of how we can reduce noise, we can scan our items slower, we can add frame averaging, we can reduce our step size. Those are the ways we could set up a scan to try to prevent noise, but in this case, this is the scan data we have, so now we need to try and clean it up before we go on to the next steps of analysis. So why do we need to clean up the noise? Well, primarily, if we go to the histogram tab, we see that if we were to try to grab the granules themselves, we do a pretty good job with something around 50. We might want to play with that a little bit. We jump back and forth. We can look and see. We're grabbing them pretty well, but we are starting to pick up a lot of noise outside the data set as well. So how can we prevent that? Well, let's go ahead and jump to custom processing, and we'll talk about that in greater detail. Welcome into custom processing. You know this as the area where we build our analysis task list. So before we start trying to do any analysis on this data set, why don't we go ahead and clean it up with some filters? So opening the filtering menu, we're going to be talking today about the mean filter. And so introduced within version 1.20 of CTAn is the ability to actually preview task list plugin items on 2D slices of your data prior to applying it to the whole data set. And this is really helpful for setting up new task lists, so you can test out your settings before you have to run through each setting on the entire data set. So what is actually happening to our data set using the mean filter? So in this case, we've got it set to 2D and a square kernel. So we're going to be taking a central pixel, and then every pixel that's touching that central pixel will also be included in the analysis, since we're doing a square kernel. And then we're only looking at a radius of 1. So we're going to look 1 pixel away from that central pixel. Now, each of these values, including the central pixel itself, will be summed up, and the average or mean will be taken of that. That mean value will be used to replace the central value that we are filtering. This is a very fast filter because the math is really simple, but it is pretty brute force and drastic, and so it's not often used just because it tends to over smooth data sets pretty quickly. And so why don't we go ahead and preview a value of 1, and we see that that actually did a pretty good job. We stopped seeing so much of the noise out in the air, and our data sets look a little bit more homogeneous. If I back out, you can see we've reduced that pretty well. Now, if we start to increase to higher values, let's go up to something like 2, preview that. We can see that it's starting to get blurrier and blurry, and we're starting to lose these fine details like this crack and these pores. If we go up a little bit higher, something like 4, now we see we've pretty much lost the pores, we've lost the crack, we've lost all the details, and we've over smoothed the data set compared to the original. So you can see how if you're going to be using a mean filter, you want to be sticking to small radius values, maybe 1 or 2, depending on your data set. And this is good for really large data sets that take a long time to process, because this is a really fast filter that you can use, but it is kind of not as smart as the other filters in that it weights every pixel the same, including the ones at the very edge around the central pixel. And so there are probably other filters that can do a better job for what you want to do, but if you are just wanting basic filtering with high speed, then the mean filter is for you. Thanks for tuning in today. Stay tuned for next month's edition of the Microphotonics Tip of the Month.
Thank you for watching this installment of our video tip of the month. At Microphotonics, we strongly believe that the research you do changes the world, and we're happy to support you in your efforts through these videos, through our advanced training courses, and our annual workshops. Through these efforts, we strive to make sure that you are getting the most from your Bruker Micro CT machine. If you have any questions on this video or any other questions, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. Thank you again, and have a good day.